All righty, here we go. Thank you all for being here. This is an encore, of the talk that I did a few days ago, and the title of the talk is, well, I'm going to screen share and we'll look at what the title of the talk is, just because it's The Divine Within Your Name, Treasure Hidden in Plain Sight. And where this all started was, for most of you, you're familiar with my journey, and I am an evidential medium, and I was doing a reading for someone recently, and her father in spirit showed up and gave us a gift of this exercise that I'm going to share with you. And I really invite you to share it with anyone that you think might be able to find meaning in this. To me, this was a treasure, the gift that was given. And I'm going to start with telling you, trying to figure out how to, bear with me. It's not advancing the slide. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulty. There we go. Okay, so I want to start with this quote, because to me, this is where I hang my hat every day, is to remember that it's one of the commonest of our mistakes to consider that the limit of our power of perception is also the limit of all that there is to perceive. Charles Leadbeater said this in the early 1900s. I think 1902 is when this quote came from. And when I happened upon this, I was so intrigued, because it's the truth. We think if we can see it, we believe it, and if we can't see it, it must not be true. And so that was a paradigm shift for me. So I'm going to pause here and finish the story. So I'd done this reading for the woman, and her dad showed up and gave us this exercise, but there was preamble that my spirit tribe educated me so that I would be ready to receive this gift. And part of my education is what you see before you is, if you had a spectrum, and over on the one side you have not true, not possible, and on the other end of the spectrum, absolutely true and absolutely possible, neither of those places, those are both a full cup. There's no place for new information, because you've already decided that you know either that something isn't true or it is absolutely true. There's no curiosity left. So the midpoint on the scale is what if. And so I maintain that what if is the power place. It's not absolutely believing, but it's suspending disbelief so that you have room for new information. So the proposition that this woman's father gave us that day was, what if your parents didn't actually give you your name? What if the divine or your angels and guides actually gave you your earth name? And that before you were born, they whispered in your parents' ear, this child is supposed to be called Cheryl. This child is supposed to be called Peggy or Stephen or Pat or Penny or Sam or Betty, whatever. We think of it as they gave us the name, but what the proposition that he made was that there's more to it than that. And that during our 9 months of gestation, they were constructing our sacred name, our divine name, and that all of the treasure hidden in our name is hidden in plain sight. And that's what this exercise is meant to do, is to reveal that. So I want to give credit to Joe, because Joe is the dad that gave us the exercise. So I just want to always give a shout out to Joe for the gift of this exercise. One of the other things I want to just lay before you to consider is, as I was being prepared for this exercise, I've always felt like curiosity is a good place to be. It's good to be curious. But as I was being educated, I was guided to that curiosity is good, but it's the mind and it's your human awareness, because with curiosity, you're still looking for an answer. Whereas with wonder, that's heart-centered and it's a higher level of awareness. Because with wonder, you're observing, but without an agenda. And awe is the soul, which is divine awareness. And so it's not that any of those is better than the other, but just to notice. With curiosity, you're generally thinking in terms of seeking an answer, and you're curious what the answer will be, versus awe and versus wonder and awe. So just a little food for thought. And I love this quote here by Jason Silva about awe is an experience of such perceptual vastness. You literally have to reconfigure your mental models of the world to assimilate it. It has no judgment. It asks no questions. It's about a receptive state where you allow for what is being presented to you. So it's heart-based, unity, no separation. So with learning versus discovery, and I'm beating a dead horse perhaps, but it's just to make the point. So learning is a box, which is I'm going to learn something. And then once you learn, then you know something. Versus discovery, there is no box. It's top-down awareness where you're open to what you find. And so with today, I would like to propose to each of you to be in a place of discovery rather than that you're going to learn an exercise. It's just, so if you feel even the sense of what you know about learning something versus discovery, it's a broader perspective. And the quote at the bottom is just something that occurred to me, that was always my aspiration, was to be caterpillar to butterfly, that metaphor that we always hear. But I want to be the wind. The wind is a broader, there's no box. So I'm intrigued with that idea. This slide here, I put the slide up because I like the images, but the quote in particular was striking to me. That there are those who see when they're shown, and those who do not see. And the blessing for me is with each of you. I know each of you personally, well, with the exception of Josh's friend. And you guys are seers, and you are seers even without being shown. And for that, I just want to really use those eyes with this gift from Joe. So this slide, most of us are familiar with these, and I won't probably keep it on the screen long, but if you stare for just a moment and sort of go cross-eyed a little bit, you can, it brings you to an image that's embedded within the picture. And I like it, and I practice with these. You can find these online. I practice with these images because I have to shift my awareness, or the way I'm looking out of my eyes, in order to see something that's hidden in plain sight. And that's what Joe is talking about with our names. Our names have treasure hidden in plain sight, but we have to shift our awareness in order to be able to see it. So if anybody can't see it, there's a heart embedded in the middle of this picture. And when you look at it just right, it pops out as 3D. So I use these sometimes just to retrain my eyes. So I won't belabor this point here, but I wanted to speak just briefly about the idea of quantum entanglement, and what in quantum physics, the idea of entanglement refers to when, like if I think about with myself and Scott, or with Sister Rosemary and her father, with my friend Pat and her husband, we have become entangled with those people that we love, and that cannot be broken. And so the connections that we have are eternal. And I sort of put that in there as a a reassurance that there's more possible than what we can see. So I just put this here because I like the little quote that time and space is nothing for two quantum entangled hearts. So for me, I'm starting with the preamble of how I was educated, and I'm going to pop off the screen share for just a second. And just so you can see, I don't know if you can see my face when I'm screen sharing or not, but I just wanted to say to each of you, and if at any point I'm going through and I'm making sure everyone's muted, but if you have a question, Leah, I'm not going to mute you because I don't know if you can unmute yourself when you're on the phone, but if anybody has a question, feel free to unmute yourself as I'm going through this. But the point I want to drive home with regards to what I'm about to show you is I want to show you my process of going down the rabbit hole. And I feel like it's useful for you to witness my process so that when we get to the exercise of discovering the treasure hidden within your own name, you'll have witnessed how I do that so that you have some access to my skills to better access how I, oh, here comes somebody else. We've got Kay joining us. So the process of, hey Kay, and Kay is one of the people whose names, with her permission, I used as an example. So we'll get to that and I'll jump back into the screen share, but I just wanted to say out loud that I'm going to share with you my process to give you some ideas about how that works. So one day in my meditation, I asked a question, which was, how do I advance my own evolution? My evolution as a human, my evolution as a medium, you know, what do I need to do? So I asked a question going into meditation, and day one, I got a reply. And they guided me to write down the word evolve and put a box around EVOL. And I don't know about anybody else, but it was I'm 56 years old, and I had never, in 56 years worth of looking at that word, I had never seen that love was in that word. And the interesting thing is that, and I don't know if you guys can see when I'm, Steve, will you unmute yourself? Can you see me moving this cursor? I don't know.
Yes,
anyway.
I can see you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's moving.
Okay, super. So I put this box around the EVOL and I saw that it was love backwards. But then if you also notice, if you were to switch that L and that O, put the L there, you have love in both directions. So I had seen that in that instant, but day one, I got that. And so the message was love in both directions, and not love in the sense that you usually think of it. And then when I saw the VE, immediately I thought of the vector equilibrium. And that's something that Buckminster Fuller had taught me about when I was 16 years old. So I didn't really know what I was looking at, but I got the sense of that love in both directions was important, and love in the infinite sense. So as I move forward, there's capital LOVE and there's little LOVE, and that's a distinction that I make. But the capital LOVE is the quantum field, is infinity, is the place that we came from, rather than small LOVE, which is like the lamp in the room you're sitting. That light coming from the lamp isn't electricity, it's an expression of electricity. It's the byproduct. It isn't actually the source. And so when we feel love in our hearts, that can be incredibly powerful. But it's not capital LOVE. It is the byproduct. It is the expression of capital LOVE. And somehow that was important to the question that I asked. And for those who aren't familiar with the vector equilibrium, in a nutshell, it is the most primary geometric array. it's part of the building blocks of the universe, but it's also considered the 0 point. It is the place from which everything stems. So bear with me and we'll get to the explanation of all this. So day 2, I asked again, how do I further my own evolution? So this time they asked me to I was guided to put the box around the OL. And I didn't really know why, but I just kept listening. So I saw the VE, the EV, and the VE. And to my mind, Stephen guided me to this with the alpha and the omega. I saw the mirror effect, but he contributed my perspective about that, which is, if you see down here at the bottom, the essence of something, the most important features are the beginning and the end. So to pay attention to that mirror image. So I didn't know what I was looking at, but I'm a researcher by training. And so what I do is I look things up. So I thought, okay, the OL must be significant. So I went to Google and I typed in OL etymology. And I didn't have any idea if OL was a word, but I typed in OL etymology and I found out that it's a Roman word which represents olive oil, which is for anointing and lighting lamps, which would be to illuminate things and to bless things. You bless someone when you anoint them. And then I thought, okay, so if I have the mirror images here and there, then let's switch the OL to LO. And I typed in LO etymology. And I found out, lo and behold, it's a Latin word for, which is part of that phrase, lo and behold, look and see, an exclamation of joy and surprise. So then I was getting kind of excited. It's like, okay, EV etymology. And sure enough, it was a word. It is a word. It has an origin. It's ancient Roman. It means house, home, dwelling place, royal house, royal dynasty. And so I knew at this point, if I typed in that VE etymology, there would be a meaning. And sure enough, it's ancient Greek for leaving the choice open, which is about free will and to be open-minded. So on day 3, I was instructed or guided to put the box around the O, capital O with the umlaut. And in Hungarian, there's an all-encompassing pronoun, the capital O with the umlaut, which is used when speaking of the divine. And this simple word has neither masculine or feminine connotations. It is both and all. So my understanding of this was guided to, if you could think of this O that you're looking at on the page, this capital O, it's flat on the page, it's two-dimensional. But if it were to lift off the page and to become an orb floating in space in front of you, it becomes a 3D image rather than a 2D image. And the orb is a symbol of royal power. Now you think about orb as a symbol of royal power, and we have VE, which is royal dwelling place, royal house. It ties to that. So my interpretation of the message to my question, the answer to my question is, your evolution is accomplished with capital L-O-V-E, not little l-o-v-e. The vector equilibrium is key because it represents infinite potential, the infinite potential of the quantum field. And that the message is that I have free will to walk this path or not. But if I choose to walk the path, I will be blessed and my path will be illuminated. That's the olive oil. And if I will allow myself to be surprised and to behold what is presented before me, and the EV about the home, the house, the royal dwelling place, I know my way home by heart. I've been being told that over and over again in meditation for the last couple of years. You know your way home by heart. So the point of showing you this lesson that I was given is so you see how I went down the rabbit hole of looking up EV. Who would have thought that that was a word? But anytime you wonder, if you type in the combination of letters and etymology, you'll find out whether it is or it isn't. So the closing of that exercise was the way out is in. And so I looked at divine. The evolve had taught me to look differently. And if you look at divine and you rearrange the words, you've got dive in. So if the way out is in, then dive in. And that's what we're about to do with names. So I'm going to give you 3 different names to give you an example of how to go down the rabbit hole. So the keys, whether it's, with this exercise, you want to set your intention. So if you're going to do this exercise with your own name, you set your intention to discover the hidden meanings left there by the divine for you, and to remember that doubt is a low energy vibration. Your elevated emotions help with the connection and with guidance. And I always, when I go to Google and I'm looking something up as far as my spiritual quest, it's always a request: guide me to the information you want me to find. So wonder versus curiosity, both are fine, but one is broader. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay out some names, and the steps are spiritual and positive words that we're going to tie to each letter of your name, the spiritual meaning of each letter, words hidden within your name, the frequency of each letter, the actual meaning of the name. If you were to look up the name Stephen, what is the meaning of that name? And please make a note of this wonderful website. It's called Name Echo, and it's got both the 2 E's in the middle. So NAMEECHO, nameecho.com. Wonderful website with great, it will break down pretty much any name I've tried to put into it in all sorts of different ways you would have never dreamed up. So the first name we're going to start with is, well, first of all, let me just stop sharing for just a second. Everybody good? Any questions or thumbs up if we're okay? Good? Okay. And feel free to jump in at any point if you have any questions. All right, we'll go back to screen sharing. So my very sweet friend Kay gave me permission to share what we discovered with her name, and her name is Kay, and that was a little bit short. So I asked her her middle name so that we'd have a little bit more to work with. And so if you see here, and for your sake, Leah, what I have is the name Kayanne, Kayannne. And
okay,
then,
so can you hear me right
yes,
now? Can you hear
yes,
me?
Yes.
Okay, can you repeat that? Can you start from the how to spell? I was already on Name Echo looking at my stuff. Hold on.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I got excited. Okay, what is can you give me that name again, please?
Yes, her name is Kayanne. Now, when I was on Name Echo with Kayanne, Kayanne, I didn't do both K and Ann for that part. For Name Echo, I just did K.
Okay.
But for the depth of the exercise, I wanted more letters to work with. So we have, so on the screen, we have Kayanne. And the first part of the exercise, and when I write it, I space each letter of the name so you have room underneath each letter to list positive and or spiritual words under each letter of your name. So in K's case, I have under the K, I have kindness, kindred, kiss, knowledge. With the A, I have angel, authentic, abundance, adaptable. Y, we have yes, youthful, Yiddish, yippee, awaken, alive, affirmation, nature, nest, new, nitrogen, novena, and for the E, evolve, energy, essence, expressive. So my recommendation with that process is what are the first things that come to mind? Like with my friend Josh, I think of joy. He's just this joyful person. You know, he always has a quick smile. Joy is part of the thing, and justice. He feels like a very level-headed person who's really about doing the right thing. You know, so what are the things with Pat, my friend Pat, who's on the call? Patience. She's, you know, is that a part of her? To me, she's been very patient, very patient with me. And Penny, you know, I mean, look at your name and look at the things that first come to your mind. Start there. And then, if you don't feel like you've found enough, I would go to Google and you type in spiritual words that begin with K, or positive words that begin with Y. If you can't think of enough, or if you just want to go out there and look and see what else, you'll look at the list, and lists will pop up, and you'll find out whether there's other words that you didn't think of that you feel resonate with you about yourself, that you know to be true about yourself. Steve is very spiritual. And so, and there it's like you look, I think it's interesting to see that first letter. You know, on Name Echo, they talk about the cornerstone, which is the first letter, and the capstone, which is the last letter. So the first step, is you write out your name with enough space so that you can put positive or spiritual words under each letter. So that's the first step. And then the second step is, can you see any words embedded within your name, whether those words are English language words or whether they're other language words? Now with K's, I was having a tough time finding English words. They weren't jumping off the page at me. So what I did was when we were working on it, I saw all these other words, and I didn't know if they were words or not. AYA, KAYA, YANN. So I just started putting in combination of letters and typing in etymology. So AYA in Hebrew means to fly swiftly. AYA in Japanese means colorful or beautiful. AYA in Turkish means angel. AY in Tibetan means mother. NAYAK in Hindi means a leader or a hero. YANN in Hebrew means God is gracious. ANE means to breathe. The letter Y is symbolic of looking within, and that's one of the things that I know to be true about Kay. She is a seeker, and she looks within for answers. Inner contemplation, meditation, inner wisdom is what is symbolic of the letter Y. And I don't think that Kay knew those things, and I certainly didn't know those things. So it was a joyful bit of discovery for both of us. So look for the letters hidden within, and the words hidden within, whether that's a first name, an English word, or other language word, and see what you find. And if you found boat, or like in Steve's name, even, there's words that then look up the spiritual meaning of those words that you find. Net, hat, whatever it is. So then on Name Echo, and there's some other websites as well, but Name Echo is pretty clear. Look up the letter analysis for each letter of your name. So K, what we're looking at, Leah, is the letter K holds the vibration of wisdom and self-sufficiency, a person of great intuition. The letter A has an aura of great ambition and boldness, suitable for an energetic spirit. And Y reveals a lot about empathy and nurturing. These things are true about K. And what I found is that as you go through this process, some of it you'll say, that's totally true about me. And some of it reveals, like you'll see when we get to Stephen's name, it might reveal something that has happened in your life. It might reveal something that may happen in your life. Just a few more with the name Kay, Kaya. And I don't know that you saw this, Kay. I may have found this after we did your name exercise, but it's Hopi. It's a shortened Hopi name for my elder little sister. And I thought about you with your brother, Kay, and in many ways you were his elder little sister, and I thought that was pretty cool. The meaning of the name Naya, Naya, it's another word in the name, but it also turns out to be another name within her name, which means new, renewal, or fresh, and in Hebrew means to please God. And my favorite part, and Stephen had seen this and it was hidden in plain sight, I couldn't even see it, is Ka. The eighth energy center, the eighth chakra, is located about 16 inches above the head. And it's the only energy center not associated with the area of the physical body. I think that's not totally true. There's more, but you get the point. And the Egyptians call that energy center the Ka. And it represents your connection to the cosmos, to the universe, and to the whole. So all of that is hidden in Kayan's name. And this is something else, Kay, that I looked up after we'd talked, which Kay is an Arthurian legend baby name. And so what I did, guys, so if you just type in the baby name Joshua, you're going to find out generally what the meaning of the name is. But you could also type in the spiritual meaning of the name Joshua, or the sacred meaning of the name Stephen, or the, so mix it up a little bit, and sometimes you find different information and a different spin on things. So in Arthurian legend, Kay is the keeper of the keys. Now, I think it's an interesting thing because it's a play on word. You can have the keeper of the keys, which is like the key you hold in your hand, but you also look at another word for another meaning for the word key is like there's a wharf, or there's like the Florida Keys. An island can be a key, or a K, as it were. And on Name Echo, I was able to find the consciousness, on the consciousness scale, the emotional energy of the name K is associated with neutrality. And I always think, I don't know that K even knows this, but I think of K like if we have two warring parties, the Hatfields and the McCoys, and we wanted the most level-headed person to put between them, K would be that person. She's very level-headed, she's very calm, even in stressful situations. So I thought that was an interesting thing, that was the name, the vibration of her name is neutrality. And these other things you see on the screen, the lucky gemstone, the animal spirit, the plant spirit. So for K, we have the gemstone is turquoise, the animal spirit is hummingbird, and the plant is tulip. Now, if it was me, what you want to do is with each one of those things, you say, guide me to the message you want me to find. And you're talking to your spirit team, your people that you love in spirit, your angels, your guides, call them what you will, but type in the spiritual meaning of turquoise. What is the spiritual significance of a hummingbird, or as a hummingbird is a totem animal? What is the spiritual significance of the tulip? Each one of those things is tied to Kay's name, and there is treasure for her there. She'll go in search of it. So now on the screen we have Stephen, and you'll see that we have, I'll give you, for Leah's benefit, I'm going to give some of the words just so she has a sense, but we have spirit, service, silence, sphere, sight, strength, seeker, soulful. All of those things are true about my friend Stephen. And we have timeless, trustworthy, timeless twice, transmit, energy, eager. We have voice and vibration, element, essence, evolve, natural, navigator. So again, it's the exercise of first what comes to mind, and then go and search and see if you can find more. And for reiteration, all you have to do is Google positive words that begin with S, positive words that begin with T, or spiritual words that begin with V. So whether it's positive words or spiritual words, that's how you do the search. So I went to Name Echo with Stephen's name, and here you have the letter analysis of each of those letters. And if you really look at this, and with regards to your own name, you get to see layers of what has been embedded. This is Joe's proposition to us, is what's been embedded in your name by the divine, so that as you walk through this life, you start to understand more of the frequency that they intended for you to have. The vibration of the name Stephen, the consciousness scale, is associated with enlightenment. And Stephen, for as long as I've known him, coming up on 40 years, that is his quest in this lifetime, is seeking to be enlightened, to gather information and to become more aware. So I thought that was incredible, that was his, on the consciousness scale, that was his name vibration. So then we were looking at and I didn't go back with Stephen for this, preparing this PowerPoint, so I'm sure I've missed some, but these were some of the English words that we came up with: 10, net, nest, even, vet, vent, vest. So if it was me, what is the meaning of the angel number 10? That's another thing that you can do, is look up, if you come up with a number, like also, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 letters in Stephen's name. What is the angel number, the significance of the angel number 6? Because that's how many letters are in his name. You could also take his first name and his middle name. How many letters is that? What is the angel number for that many letters tell you? In addition, here we have 10. Or net. What is the spiritual significance of a net? What's the spiritual meaning of a nest, or a vent, or a vest? So I use those phrases to go in search of things. And we were looking at, okay, what are some words that are not English words that we see in his name? So Neve, neve, means snow in Italian and Portuguese. And the interesting thing is that Stephen spent 2 years of his life in Brazil, and he speaks fluent Portuguese. And so you have a Portuguese word interwoven in a name that isn't a Portuguese name, which on some level, isn't that interesting? And stee, S-T-E-E, is a noun, which means ladder. And Stephen and I recently had an interesting interaction with spirit where a ladder became significant in what happened. And then several months later, we end up discovering that there's a word within his name that means ladder. And again, is it earth-shattering? Maybe so, maybe not, but it's certainly interesting. And just even if you look at, so the next thing on the page for Leah's benefit is even Stephen. It's not, so even is within his name. And there's that phrase, even Stephen, having no balance of debt on either side, even in the setting of accounts. But Steve is that guy. He's very much an even Stephen kind of a guy. So it's just interesting because it's not, we're taking part of the word that we found in his name, but it's also another little way, like if you discover something and it brings to mind a phrase, that's another way of discovering something that's hidden in plain sight that may be true about you. This is a lot of verbiage on one page, but it's more, I had just gone to look up what is, if you think about a baby name, you could look up the baby name Stephen, but I went to Wikipedia just to mix it up a little bit, and Wikipedia had something to say about the name Stephen. And it gave, it's tied to Christians, it belonged to Saint Stephen, and who's Saint Stephen, and the book of Acts. And so there's a lot of information that is here that I found through Wikipedia that lots here, because Stephen could go down the rabbit hole in search of. If you look at Stephanos, here it says the meaning is wreath or crown. Now, what's the spiritual significance of a wreath? Or down here at the bottom where it talks about the circle of flight and the Iliad and Homer. You know, there's things here that you might not think to go down the rabbit hole in search of, but there's a lot here that he could go searching for deeper meaning. Okay, the last name that I'm going to go through is my friend Lauren. And so it's the same, and I realize that you guys probably at this point understand the exercise, but there's a few more things here where I'm going to show you my thought process of where I would go deeper for information. So we have Lauren, Lauren, and we've listed positive or spiritual words under each letter of each name. And to reiterate, if you look like in Lauren's case, under the U, we have unicorn. Now, we all know what a unicorn is. So how do you go deeper with unicorn? And unicorn, you know, what's the spiritual meaning? What's the legend? What's the origin? You know, what are the different ways that you could think of to rephrase it to find different information? And it's also, in my opinion, guys, this is something I wanted to underscore, that sometimes, like if you have a friend or a partner that you did this exercise together, they may also be able to give you words from their perception of how you appear in the world. Like Lauren had never heard of the word Ubuntu, and yet I shared with her that word, and I didn't give her the meaning. I said, go and look it up. And so she was able to discover that there's something in that African word that was meaningful to her. So the other thought that I had, if you look at all these letters, we've got love and laughter and light and abundance and angel and aliveness and unicorn and universe. You see all these words. The other thing you could do, which it would take a little bit of time, but it might be interesting, is after you come up with all of your words, don't hold on to, I'm done. If more words come, add them to the list. But then you could write a poem or a story or a song, but use these words to write a story about yourself, or to allow someone to guide you to write a story about yourself. So it's just another fun possibility with this portion of the exercise. So I went back to name echo, and the name Lauren reflects the emotional energy of love on the consciousness scale. And isn't it interesting that, you know, there's love, and Lauren begins with love. And so I won't go through all of the letter analysis, but you see here, I want to make a point for you, is that let's just go for the letter R for the sake of this exercise. So the number equivalent to R is 9. Now that's important, because why is that? You know, I don't know enough about I don't know if this is a term or not, letterology and numerology, but why is R equivalent to 9? And what does the angel number 9 mean? So you have a sign of great intuition and wisdom, characteristic for a person with a special understanding of the world. Look at the ways that you could go down the rabbit hole with that. You know, you could look up the angel number 9 and read what that's about. But then I'm curious as to why R is equivalent to the number 9. It's not the 9th letter in the alphabet. You know, I'm going through that in my mind. Why is that? So be curious, or be in a place of wonder and see where it leads you. So Lauren in Latin, And again, I didn't go just to the standard baby name. I looked at those things, but for the sake of this, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper. So the name Lauren is tied to the laurel tree. It's a symbol of honor and victory. So in Greek and Roman times, the laurel, you see those Greek Olympians with the crown of leaves around their head. Those are laurel leaves. That's why it represents victory. And so then for me, what's the spiritual meaning of the laurel tree? What did the Druids think of the laurel tree? What's the spiritual significance of the laurel tree? Just as far as some of the ways that I would go down the rabbit hole. And then if I'm looking at her name, I saw NAU, and I typed in NAU etymology. It's a boat or a ship. So, okay, what's the spiritual meaning of a boat or a ship? And we can extrapolate in our minds what that is, but that's not the point. The point is, just as we advance from 1492 to 1892 to 1992 to now, we have advanced, and the spirit world has advanced, and they're using the technology. So you can look at an NAU and say that's a boat or a ship and go, oh, it's about making a passage. Don't do that. That cuts off their ability to give you more treasure. So you can extrapolate in your mind what you think it is, but do the work. And the blessing of this exercise is it doesn't have to be done all at once. It can be done over days, weeks, or months. But go down the rabbit hole and type in, guide me to the message you want me to find, and what is the spiritual meaning of a boat? And NAU came up as boat or ship. So I would look up the spiritual meaning of a boat, and I would look up the spiritual meaning of a ship. Because a ship is a boat, but a boat isn't always a ship. So that's two pieces of information. Or AU equals gold. What's the spiritual properties of gold? What is the frequency of gold? What is gold on the periodic table? What number is the gold on the periodic table? What's the angel meaning of that number? So you see, there's all these different ways where you can it's about taking that O, where we talked about before, the capital O with the umlaut, and lift it up off the page so that it's an orb in front of you. And depending on what vantage point you're at, you get different information. So I'm looking at this RUA etymology, and I didn't go all the way down the rabbit hole with this one, but in Old Portuguese, RAU means street, and it also, in French, rue, R-U-E, means street. Now, for Lauren, so you have this one RUA meaning street in a bunch of different languages, and yet if you look at, in Latin, RUGA means wrinkle. There's some information here and lots of different points where, like for me, what I can say about my friend Lauren is right now she's on a path, she's on a street, and she doesn't know where that street is leading. But it's almost like it's confirming for her that yes, you are on a path and just keep moving. So it feels like there's a message there for her. So again, what I have on this next to last slide is some other ways, and we've talked about these. How many letters are in the name, and what is the angel number? What is that meaning? All you have to do is go to Google and type in the angel number and then put in the number. So angel number 45, and see what it says. And there's lots of different hits, so you can find your favorite angel number website, but mix it up a little bit. English words versus foreign words. Search using etymology, especially for words. It's interesting sometimes when you have a word, you think you know what it means, but look up the etymology, because you'll find an ancient origin that maybe is more rich and textured than you had anticipated. And also there are places where you can go to find the frequency, how many hertz, or what is the sound frequency of your name. So I found this quote that I love. I just think that it's beautiful. I'm just going to move this to see if, so I'm going to read it for Leah's sake. We'll share with you every moment of your life, and we will ask you to understand your spiritual incarnation and your spiritual name, and help you find the strength to live it. So to me, this Yogi Bahan, is talking about they're going to give you a spiritual name in this instance. But the way that I read this, when I asked Spirit to guide me to more information to share with you, and when I read this, we ask you to understand your spiritual incarnation and your spiritual name. But the gift that Joe gave us is that our spiritual name is our given name, because it was constructed with so much meaning and so much treasure. And all we have to do is unlock that treasure chest, as it were, so that our own given name becomes our spiritual name. And it doesn't matter if you have 5 or 45 or 145 people called Joshua or Stephen or Cheryl. You will be guided to find the treasure within your name, even if it's identical to my name, because you're asking with intention that they guide you to the treasure that is your name. So you couldn't just reveal the spiritual secrets of Penny's name or Pat's name or Cheryl's name, because it's like a fingerprint. Your name is a fingerprint of you. So that, just in case anyone, I mean, most of you know how to reach me, but that is my website, quantummediumship.com. And that's all she wrote. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Cheryl, it's not a question. The thought that I was having is, some of us, we have English names.
Yeah.
But we might also have, for example, my name in Hebrew is Pesha.
Ah, neat.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if in fact you have a given name that might be different in Italian or Spanish or whatever, there's an equivalent.
Yes.
You might want to look up the equivalent.
Oh, that's great, Penny. That's awesome. And that's a beautiful example of another way to dive down the rabbit hole. And I'll bet you find so many interesting layers with that, Penny. And so feel free, in addition to questions, if you have comments, I'm wide open. I just think I'm interested in other folks' perspective.
Well, thank you. It's a gem.
Well, I hope that it's meaningful for you on this particular day, your dad's angel day.
It is. And actually, my dad goes by Steve. So that was wonderful to already get into it.
Nice. So you get to see some hidden treasure already.
Yes. And my last name is Stevens.
That's right.
It is. Look at that.
I was going to say too, Cheryl, is that, and I mentioned this the last time too, when I was starting to look for things, I would like type in my name or the names of other words, and just go and, there's a site, just type in the name and then anagram, and it'll break down that word into all the different arrangements, from using all the letters to down to 1 or 2 letters. So just type it in and it can do the work for you, and then go in and explore all those combinations.
Yeah.
It's the other way that I do that. So that's been helpful for me if I don't want to go through the thought process of and all that. Let the computer do it. It's easier.
Yeah. And I think that it's important. We had a gal who was on Sunday, and she was talking about how she had changed her name. Like maybe she'd been given a spiritual name, but she had changed her name to something other than her given birth name. And at some point she realized that she was sort of, for the years that she was this other person rather than her birth name, she was out of sorts. And she had gone home to Denmark, to where her family was from, and had a realization, it was a spiritual awakening, but they said, you know who you are. Whoever it was who was speaking said, you know who you are. And she said that something, when she stepped back into her name, her birth name, which is Karen, everything lined back up. It was like she was out of sorts, and then it was almost like a guitar being out of tune. And then she became in tune again when she stepped back into her actual birth name, her given name.
That's interesting because, when we become nuns, we get a new name. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to do Marianne, which is my birth name, as well as Rosemarie, which is my religious name.
Wow, what a great, interesting endeavor. I'd love to hear how that goes, Sister Rosemarie.
I will let you know.
And go ahead.
I wanted to say too, that statement that you made earlier there, Cheryl, because I wrote that down, the voice came to her and said, you know who you are, don't you? It asked the question, it's like, you know who you are, don't you? And I thought that was very telling, that this, whatever that information she was getting was actually kind of challenging her, in a sense.
Yeah.
Something else
they want us to know. They want us to know who we are.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, Stephen, I'm listening to you say that one of the things that, of course, in mediumship you're supposed to do is when you sit, just to go in. It isn't always connecting with spirit, and it isn't always connected going out. The idea is to go inward. And to do this with your name is a journey in.
That's right.
It absolutely is a journey in. So this is neat, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Very neat.
Yeah.
And what we found too in doing this together, Cheryl and I, we've had some wonderful experiences, is that field out there, or you can say going inward, because the thing is that there is no disconnection between what is out there and what is in here. It's all connected, all at the same time, always has been and always will be.
Right.
And so what we've found is that that field, that whatever is out there operating all of this, it loves to play and do this exploration and discovery with us. And as we've gone down the rabbit hole, we've sometimes gone very, very deep, and then we know we haven't gone deep enough. And then when we do go where we know that we've arrived where it wanted us to be, and we take such joy in that. And it also expresses joy to us that discovery and that interplay was what this was all about. This is how we learn to play in that field. And we just have had the greatest time doing that. It's like the only thing you really want to do at some point.
So, Stephen, I'm listening to you say that, and the reason I'm smiling is because I'm saying to myself, there really is no end. It's like you think you've reached the end of the internet,
but
you haven't.
No, you're exactly right. There is no
going.
End. That's as far as we went to, at that point, and it was enough to give us the understanding of this expression and this discovery. No, I totally agree with what you said there.
I'm thinking to myself, it's bottomless, it's topless, and it's topless and bottomless.
Yeah, it's an infinite field. So that means all possibility without end.
Right.
And I want to make sure to present to you guys a thought. And I did it with the O, which lifted off the page and became an orb, right? So what if you did that with your whole name? So you lift your name off of the page, so it goes from 2D to 3D, and it becomes holographic. It changes. If you look at Penny Chester Riley, or Pesha, I love that. If you look at it written on a page, that's one thing. But if you lift it up, because the holographic vantage point changes everything. And so it's and I can't do it for very long. It's sort of a process where can I, even in my mind's eye, sort of lift Cheryl up off the page and look at it in 3D or in 4D. Like if you've ever looked up at the image of a tesseract is a 4D cube. And you can find GIF images of a tesseract on YouTube, on like, you know, you can Google it. You can find the moving image of what a 4D cube looks like. And it's a whole different experience than even a 3-dimensional cube. You look at a 4D cube, which is a tesseract, and it's vibrationally completely different. So do that with your name and imagine it lifting up off the page and floating in front of you as a hologram. Because if you think about what a hologram is, and this is really important, I want to emphasize this to each of you, is a hologram has every piece contains the whole.
Right.
And the whole contains every piece. So if you translate that to your name contains all of the pieces of you and your life contains the whole. So do you see where I'm going with that? And so there's something about the holographic nature of your name. And I don't think we think in those terms, even in reading books. You know, we read books as a 2-dimensional thing, but if you can read a book as a hologram, or with a holographic mindset, it shifts the way that you receive information. So,
yeah.
I hope that was helpful. It's a gift from Joe. I'm just the messenger, but
Thank you so much, Cheryl. It was so awesome.
Thank you for letting me use your name, Miss Kay.
Oh, I loved it. Thank you for that gift.
And Suzanne, I'm glad that you were able to join us.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Leah, was that okay?
That's perfect. Thank you.
And what I'll do is I'll send you the PowerPoint so you can see the images. I'll email it to you.
I really appreciate that, Cheryl. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, guys, make sure tonight, if you would, do me the favor of thanking Joe before you, as you click and leave the meeting, make sure to thank Joe.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm going to.
Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you too.